Hi everyone, James here from F9 and welcome to F9 TRAX Milano. I'm so pleased to finally get this release out. It's probably one of the most detailed TRAX projects we've ever put together in terms of the arrangement, the sound selection, the sound library, everything. And there's joy to be had from using this thing, I promise you, because I've been playing with it since we finished it. Let's not waste any time, let's just go and have a look straight inside this. We have three main formats for this pack: Ableton, Logic and WAV. Let's start off in the Logic pack. As always, we've got a separate WAV pack, and as well as the stems that make this up, there are individual loops, hits, and all of the MIDI files that make this production come together. We've actually also included all of the MIDI files and the loops and the hits in both the Ableton and the Logic folder as well, because they're always useful to be dropping in and out of additional productions without you going searching through folder systems. Let's now have a look at some of the sounds, and without doubt, the star of the show is this lead piano patch. It's been very carefully put together to really bring transient energy and to cut through a busy mix. And if any of you have tried to do this on standard piano libraries, you know that this is no easy task. It's nice and wide, it's recorded in stereo, and listen to how it can cut through in a busy production. Absolutely perfect for those kind of neoclassical lines. Now, I'm always looking at ways that we can push our sampling technology, and just recently I built this. This is based around a TL Audio M3 valve desk. It's only 8-channel, but I've managed to actually put a distribution system in that then fires one set of stereo signals out through various compressors, and then I can bring them up in parallel whilst I'm actually sampling. So this gives me parallel processing whilst I'm actually sampling in, and that was used heavily on this principal piano patch. We've got another piano patch in here. It's much warmer. It's a perfect juxtaposition. Again, nice and wide and fat. You'll hear a lot of reverb hanging off here. This is to get all of that atmosphere for club. I've actually got that up on a return. And quick little tip, I've side-chained that reverb output against a trigger kick that's just at the top on this page. And also, I've EQ'd the reverb so that I've taken some of the top and most of the bottom off. A great little trick there to actually get that to sit. So as well as a lot of your music side chaining, your reverb is starting to pump as well. A similar thing has been applied inside of the Logic version. There's also an alternate version of this warm piano patch that's using a velocity processor. Here in Ableton, we're using the velocity rack device, and in Logic, we're using the velocity processor, and it's gorgeous. And here's a perfect example of that piano in action. This is just 3 patches from the sound library that you can load either from the Logic library section here or from the racks folder inside of the Ableton pack. And that is just one of the pads called Moonscape, the Mini M Bass, and the Warm Piano Hugs patch. So as you can see, this isn't just designed, this pack, for just smashing through club things. There's some beautiful and emotive pieces in there that you'll really enjoy playing with. Now, just while we're at this main breakdown, I want to show you this build-up. Now that to me is a perfect mixture of sonic and musical pressure. It's rising up beautifully. I'll show you how to do that on the keyboards in a little bit. It's very simple. This is all in A minor, so it's all of the white notes. But also we've got these fantastic breaks firing out. To get that sound, we had to go completely old school. This is the Akai S1100, a vintage sampler that is renowned for spitting out breakbeats perfectly. It was used by an awful lot of breakbeat pioneers, including some of the jungle and drum and bass guys. We sampled the breaks in and back out of this machine, and we've got them here set up as MIDI programs, and you can see how we're kind of piecing all of this stuff together. We also used a 12-bit Akai S950, the sampler that famously was used by Norman Cook, to sample the hi-hats and one of the kick drums in this pack, I believe, that's in the drum kit. Let's go and have a quick look at the drums now. The main drum kit is really nice and tight. As you can see, it's really simple for most of it. Some more parts do join in later on. Most importantly, we get an additional hi-hat come in. That 909 hi-hat there will really help lift things up. Let me show you the transition with all of the music in. So it's such a simple idea just to add another hi-hat, but you hear the power it has there, lifting that next section up. And this is all about building. This entire track is in motion. There are a number of loops underneath that main kit. Here's a 12-bit loop. So again, simple and tight. A bit more of a looser one here, this crush loop. And you're definitely hearing the grit of the S950 in this. This is a warehouse, almost percussive loop. It's very quiet here, but it's much bigger at the front. just adds an additional pounding layer of rhythm to that front section. And there's also a percussive loop that pops in and out. Add some cymbals and snare fills and you get this. So you hear that by taking the loops in and out, even though they're programmed to fit beautifully against that main drum kit, they really do add something special. They're all quite soft, transient-wise, and that really works against the tightness of that kit. Now, there is just one thing that I want to show you on the kick drum. It's only happening in Logic, and I sometimes find that Logic, for reasons that completely baffle me, will sometimes lose the fronts of its transients of its drums. So I found a really clever little trick to just bring some of that back. I've got the MIDI processor here, and I'm using this envelope section. I've got a very fast, just no attack, tiny bit of release envelope, single hit, so every time that there's a bit of MIDI information coming down, it generates this envelope signal. Now, I didn't realize this until recently, but you can send that to anything. And here I've got an overdrive plugin, and I've basically clicked on their learn MIDI parameter and just twiggled this drive control here. And every time you get a bass drum hit, look at what's happening. So there you are, Logic has a transient processor built in. So let me show you how I put that together. Here's the drum machine designer with all of its channels. The kick is the first one. So I come down to the mixer, twirl that open, and here's the quick sampler that's firing that kick. Then in the MIDI effects there, I've added this modulator, set that up, and then put the plugins that I want onto the actual kick, and then just triggered it from there. As I say, I have no idea why Logic does sometimes lose drum transients, but it does. Trust me, this is a great way around that. Let me just play you a little bit at the beginning. So this is the drum soloed and all of the effects. So as you're hearing, that is not just cliched white noise rises. Let me really draw your attention to this one, the granular effects. They're quite bizarre, aren't they? Here's another example. Now, what am I using to do this? This is all from a Tasty Chips GR1, one of the most interesting synthesizers I've seen released for the last few years. It's a granular synth, and basically it creates a whole series of grains that you can spread around the stereo image and you can play in. It will take MIDI information, so it'll actually track all of the MIDI, but you can just let it run, which is what we did here. And the results have been fantastic. Now, we haven't just created static audio files with it. We've also created things like these atmosphere loops. And I can actually play those in with the mod wheel. So there's a few examples here. Let me show you the MIDI. Here's another. That means we can play in tension parts, like, for example, this bit here. So that means you can actually build a performance just simply by playing almost the mod wheel. All of them sourced from bespoke patches that we made on the GR1. One thing I really love is how we're using them just to feed in gently into that piano line. Subtle, yes. Effective, 100%. You're trying to drive emotion with a piece of music like this, and this all builds up. And if you love the sound of all of these drums, they are ready and raring to go on the startup page. Our infamous startup pages are still generating tons and tons of fun for all of our users. So basically, you get the entire drum production and all of the sound library on one page, just ready to go. And obviously everything's designed there to work perfectly together. These are available in both the Ableton and the Logic versions. Let me just show you something that I whipped up on this. All of that just comes straight out of the box. Obviously, we've got a very famous gated vocal line there. And that gate that you've seen acting there is being triggered by this part. But I'm just taking it right off the stereo master so no one can hear it. And then it's being fired into the sidechain here. The same is happening on the Logic project. Back in the good old days, we used to have to do all of this manually, and this is the unit that we used to do. It's a Drawmer stereo gate. Now, basically, you would take the output of a sampler and then feed that into a key input in the back of the unit that could then trigger both the left and right channels. You'd then use MIDI to send a signal out of the sampler or out of the synth that you were using to trigger the gate, stick the gate on external mode, and you'd get this kind of rhythmic gating. And with one lovely little touch here, it's also possible on both of the startups to do tempo changes. All of the loops are warped, and of course the rest of it's being triggered by MIDI. There's only one exception here, and that is the breaks. Because these are triggering sections of loops, they will sound odd if you do change tempo. So first of all, just bounce them in place or freeze them in Ableton, and then apply something like rhythmic warping or beats mode in Ableton, and everything will work as it should. So don't feel at all restricted by our original project tempo. I'm trying to put as many of the TRAX projects together as humanly possible in A minor because it's all of the white notes. So it makes a great reference point as we're going through different techniques, different chords, moves, etc., etc. However, there is a slight problem with A minor. For club music, it's not the best kind of bass harmonic and resonance and all of that kind of stuff. That's all down to our actual physical makeup. We're very different between each other, but we also have similarities. And for some reason, bass sounds that are appearing down in F, E, D, and G, they just sound an awful lot better in big club systems. But the chord sequence for this uses a bit of a trick. It doesn't start on the root note. We're so used to seeing everything running just around roots. This is actually starting on the 6th note of the scale. So let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's an F, which means we can go lower than the A and hit a really nice low note. Starting there, we're then dropping to the D and then heading back up to the A. Temporarily just nipping up to the C. So a nice 4-note chord sequence there, and then F, D, and A. Now what's important is that A is then held for 2 bars. Everything else is a single bar movement. Here's the actual chords. You hear that extra tension as that last chord is held. That's going to be ever so useful when we come to have a look at the melodies in a minute. Now this could be considered a 6-4-1 sequence. Now do those kind of sequences work in major keys? Well, yeah, here's C major, it's all the white notes again. The 6th chord of C is actually A minor, down to F. So how many times have you heard that? Here's the minor version again. So both of them have quite an emotive feel, which is perfect because they will just take melody. Now let me show you how we're using that 2-bar hold of the A minor to add some tension at the end of each round of the melodies. Let me play you another one. One more just for luck. Have you spotted it? What I'm doing is finishing the melody right at the beginning of that 2-bar sequence. I am not playing over that held chord. And that kind of gives its own form of resolution. It's something that we really love. So then it means we can use drum fills and a few little flourishes. There's a synth part that comes in there just to kind of fill the gaps. And it almost brings attention to the fact that something new is about to change and it's about to go. It's a great little trick with melody. You don't have to play all the time. I know it's a cliche, but sometimes it's about the notes that you don't play. And I've done that throughout this piece. Now, I just quickly want to break here for a minute and talk about snobbery, because I'm seeing this appear all over comment sections and in forums just recently. Let me make something really clear. Wherever you are in your musical and technical journey is exactly right. Okay? Don't ever listen to anybody trying to put you down because they feel that they've got superior knowledge, all of this kind of stuff. In my experience, the very best people always aim to inspire. And those that are empty vessels try to dominate, and they do that by putting others down. It temporarily makes them feel better, but trust me, they walk away from those kind of things feeling rubbish. Now, I'm completely self-taught musically, and I love being able to bring other people into some of the things that I've learned throughout the way, because this is our community and it's all about sharing. So please ignore and don't engage with all of these people that just troll around the internet. What you are actually normally witnessing is either them projecting their own lack of knowledge in certain circumstances, or their own resentment for education that they might have even paid for, not quite paying the dividends that they were hoping for. Stick to those that aim to inspire, and you can't go wrong. And also pay that forward. If you're ever at the point where you feel you're just about to let out a troll-like comment, sit back and go, is this really going to help? Is there something I can learn here? Or most importantly, is there something I can show someone else to help them on their journey? So with that in mind, I absolutely dare you, delete all of my melodies, delete everything that I've got going on there. Load it up, and even if you can't play, just whack around on a few white notes whilst this sequence goes by and see if you can come up with something original and new. Honestly, this chord sequence will take notes like you would never believe. As you can see, this is something that I'm really passionate about with this release. Now, if your keyboard skills are limited, please don't just try and sit in front of a piano roll and looking for inspiration. If you can, write melodies in your head and then use just either a laptop microphone or anything that you can grab to get those ideas down. Remember, nobody is watching you in the context of your own studio. We sometimes almost magic up the entire music industry behind us going, well, that's rubbish, isn't it? It's not. It's a time to and a place to experiment when you're in your own space. Timbaland is famous for doing this. He actually always goes in and beatboxes and just makes noises and sounds over the top of the beats that he's building, and then either fills them in or uses them for extra inspiration. It's a brilliant technique, and I promise you it will pay dividends. If you do get F9 TRAX Milano, I hope you love it as much as I really enjoyed putting it together. It's a signature release for us, and we've got plenty more coming, I absolutely promise you. Take care out there, and remember that you are always appreciated.